Hello, welcome to Engaged Citizens of Columbia County. I'm your host, Sherry Ryan, and today I am joined by candidate Jeromy Hasenkamp, who is running for the Columbia County Communications 911 District Board, Position 2, Zone 2, and otherwise known as CCOM. So welcome, Jeromy.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Sherry. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for just coming and being willing to share with our community and just get to know you a little bit better. So, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I grew up most of my life here in Columbia County. My family left Columbia County to go to Alaska during the pipeline gold or oil pipeline being
Mhm.
built. Anyway, came back, grew up here through middle school, high school. I thought I was actually going to leave the county when I got on with the state police because they typically don't send you back where you work when you get hired there. And lo and behold, they assigned me to the Scappoose office at the time, and then I spent majority of my career. I was 22 and a half years with the Oregon State Police. Spent about 10 of that, run around all over the state and SWAT team, did some time in detectives, a lot of time in the training section. Since then, I've left to go into private sector. Actually, I would also work part-time for Vernonia Police Department and Columbia City Police Department. I'm still a reserve police officer with Columbia City.
Okay.
And so, a wide variety, but most of my experience has been in law enforcement. In 2017, I went into private sector, and that's kind of where I've been since. I run my own business. I run a security firm of 85 to 100 people throughout Oregon and Washington. And we do a lot of different things from uniformed to uniform work, security work, to plainclothes security work, and a little bit in between some security consulting and whatnot. I'm What's that?
You have a vast law enforcement background.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you got.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
continue to keep trying to add to it and do some different things. So again, I still try to keep on top of everything that's going on in the law enforcement world. Security and law enforcement obviously intertwine quite a bit, especially when it comes to dealing with some of our clients that are having some issues. So yeah, we still continue to grow in that area.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome that they sent you back. Like you said, they don't normally do that. That's really cool. You were blessed that way.
I was, in 2017 when I was in the private sector, I traveled all over the country, and it really, coming back to Columbia County or being in Columbia County all these years, I haven't found any place else that I would like to live. I think there's a lot of folks. In fact, I remember, in high school, everybody's like in a hurry to get out. And
Yeah.
then now here we are, gosh dang, I don't know, it's been a long time. But almost 30 years later, and there's a lot of us that are back in the county going, yeah, well, we tried other places, but just can't beat anywhere else.
Like, this is a pretty good place, I guess.
It does, it's kind of like
I
a
did the
magnet.
same thing.
It's kind of like what with my mom, they said family settled up Dutch Canyon, and
Yeah.
they've been up there a long time, and it's kind of the whole thing. My mom left, and she's been back here too, so
Oh,
it does
nice.
keep
So your
drawing you back
family's
in.
here.
What's
Everybody's
that?
back. Everybody's back here, all the
Who's
fam.
back here? Yep.
Love it. So, why do you want to run for this position? Why do you want to run for this board position?
Well, you know, um, obviously, all my years of public service and my experiences, I think that this is a perfect time for me to get involved, especially with the 911 district. Um, I've had the experience of going throughout the state, seeing and utilizing different radio systems, seeing how other parts of the state work, some good, some bad. I've seen and utilized some of our other public safety partners, in my private business and seeing how they work. So I think I have a lot to offer to the district,
Yeah.
and I have that. I'm in a place in my life, my career, where I think it's important to kind of get involved in some sort of political office. I mean, we can see everything that's going on these days in politics, and people getting into it for different reasons. I'd legitimately like to think that I'm really trying to get into this for the right reasons to make things better and also be fiscally responsible. I think that's a big thing these days is, everybody's looking at their property taxes, everybody's looking at all the other taxes that are being leveraged, and I think they really want to know that our politicians that are in there, or people that are elected officials, are actually looking at the bottom line and going, yeah, we need this stuff, but do we have a very good fiduciary plan? Are we doing what is best for this, and are we looking at all aspects on how to come up with maybe some creative ways to fund stuff? So
Yeah.
that's really why I'm looking at it as like, this is I think that having gotten involved more in the last few months and learning more about the stuff that's going on, I just
Yeah.
think it's a good time for some change.
Yeah. Cool. I like it. Why do you know what a board member does? What does a board member do?
Yeah, well, the board members there to obviously take, and if we just left everything inside the agency to make all the decisions, right?
Hmm.
There's no oversight, and really what a board
Yeah.
member is doing is having that outside look at things,
Yeah.
and being another set of eyes with their different experiences to look at it and go, now maybe we should consider this, or when they do put
Yeah.
together proposals and plans, that there is that person who's going to take a look at it and go, I don't think this is the right way to go. Obviously, it's a board to, you got to have a certain number of votes in order to make things pass. But it's just like
Yeah.
anything. They're specifically focused on the 911 district and how they use the funds coming in from the different levies or operating funds. And make the everything coming in, make sure that it is not just them rubber stamping and going forward with something. Um,
Mhm.
so, and in my experience so far, I feel that there's not a lot of hard questions being asked by the board members of the district. And I think that that's really where we need some change
Yeah.
to look at that and go, well, is this the best plan? Number one, does this plan fit state law? And
Yeah.
um, and even looking into alternative ways of funding things, finding other partners. The 911 district is really to cater to the 911 center, law enforcement, and EMS, both fire and ambulance.
Hmm.
And I think that there's a way to also bring in some other partners in that, that way it will just help extend our funding. And I think that
Yeah.
we need some forward thinking folks that are not just looking at stuff from within, but willing to step up and see what can we do to make it a better 911 district to all the people that they serve, which is ultimately the community. Yes, we have the firefighters and the police officers, and that they dispatch for, and they take the 911 calls in, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's giving a good service to the constituents, which is
Yeah.
everybody in Columbia County. So
Yeah.
I think that's when we look at it, it's like that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Jeremy, that was a great explanation. Thank you. You broke it down, and I'm going to be real. That was a really great just explanation of what a board does, for in all in all different agencies, in all different ways. It's an oversight, right?
Yeah.
An oversight board. And I really like how you explained that. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you. That was a really great explanation, and I appreciate that. So it comes down to like you're telling us about like about yourself and what you've done and everything, and the what qualifies you to be a board member. Why would you be best for this position?
Well, I think that's um, a good question, Sherry. And I really think what I bring to this position is a multitude of experience. I actually started my law enforcement career in Scappoose PD as a cadet back in 1992.
Okay.
Um, and so I've seen how the 911 center has changed and gone from in the basement of the old courthouse to the new center,
Yeah.
and how the radio systems have changed, where we went to county having a certain frequency, the UHF frequency, and running two radios in the car,
Yeah.
to where if we ever wanted to talk to county, you had to talk on their radio versus on the radio for Scappoose PD and St. Helens PD and the fire channels.
Yeah.
So I've got a long standing experience with within. I've also worked, having worked out here as a trooper, a lot of times it was myself and, another deputy that would be out till, wee hours in the of the morning. And we would rely on whichever radio frequency it was, whether we're on our channel or their channel. And, I was out in the areas where, sometimes our pack sets would work better from the state police than the counties. And so, I've also been out in the different areas. We in a private sector, we work with Oregon Department of Forestry all over the state. And so you see what radio frequencies work and which ones don't work and what goes into that. We've also worked with some federal partners on stuff. And, I'm also a gearhead, right? I like gear. I'm always looking at what's new and exciting out there. And, but not only is what is the most recommended, what does everybody say? Oh, you got to have, hey, you got to have a Chevy, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's fine unless you're a Ford person or, but we got to look at, what bells and whistles do we need and which one, what are our needs and what are our wants?
Yeah.
Um, and there's always going to be that. So I think that I'm very good at looking at that. I understand enough about radio frequencies probably to be dangerous, but I would understand when, some of these people that we bring in to tell us about what the county needs, I can
Yeah.
understand. So,
Yeah.
um, operating radios in our own business, we know what's out there on the market and what the going rates are. And, looking at, and I was always one of those, when I was a trooper, I was always interacting with the radio techs, how can I make the communication better? I spent a
Okay.
lot of time, understanding about BOEC, which is the Bureau of Emergency Communication in Portland. At the time, they were running an 800 radio system, which is the same as what WCN does. In fact, they can intercommunicate. But so many times as a trooper, I would be out on Highway 30 in Multnomah County or even up in Washington County. And because I didn't have an 800 megahertz radio, I could not be on the same system as Washington County or Portland. So we relied on dispatch to make phone calls. And that was very dangerous for our troopers out there and even our other police officers. We'd be on the same major incident and we couldn't even talk to each other. And so that's what I want to, as
Yeah.
we're, these are all experiences that I think that I can really bring to the table to go, ultimately, what's great? Fire departments, they need the communications as well.
Yeah.
They need to be able to reach dispatch. They need to get the information from dispatch out to the fire department. But I
Yeah.
also understand that, they have multiple apparatus on a
Mm-hmm.
site. And, they can also be running, repeaters off of those trucks so that their mobiles can or their pack sets can talk to those trucks. We don't have that luxury necessarily with law enforcement. It might be one trooper, it might be one deputy, it might be one city police officer on
Yeah.
something,
Responding. Yeah.
yeah, because and we have so as law enforcement, we have so many spontaneous things happen, right? You could be driving
Yeah.
down Highway 30 and all of a sudden here's, a car rolls over in front of you, or
Yeah.
you're seeing somebody that you got to jump out with because they're darting across the highway, or you happen to be driving by and somebody ducks behind a bush in a neighborhood. These are all things that happen very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so and I've noticed over the years there has not been a very heavy law enforcement presence on the board, and so
Yeah.
things again get very directed towards fire service. And I'm not
Yeah.
don't want to take away from fire service, but I just think that it needs to be balanced.
Yeah.
So long answer to a short question is I think that multitude of reasons and experiences that I have will just be able to provide to what the board does.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Can you talk, about some of the things you think the district, the board, and the district is doing right? And then maybe some things that you might carry into your term that you kind of want to see improvement on, or that you would be, your top priorities of
Yeah.
looking at.
Well, I think what the board is doing right is that they're looking at the new radio system, right? Columbia
Yeah.
County's radio system hasn't had any major upgrades for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
When I do out and work a reserve shift, it seems like excuse me, the radio and what I hear is not improving.
Yeah.
It seems to be getting worse. And I know, a lot of the agencies, having somebody coordinate their maintenance, it might not be, the
Mm.
best. So, I think that it is time for us to look at that and have a pathway forward. Where they could improve is, there's never a true path forward. In business and I think where a lot of times government falls down is there's no true pathway. We don't
Yeah.
look down the road. We just look at the budget for the next 2 years. And really, where I would want to, step up and help
Mhm.
do is let's plan a pathway. Where do we want to be in 10 years? What do we
Yeah.
envision the county growth is going to be? Law enforcement needs, fire needs for radio frequencies. What about things such as Columbia River PUD? There's been a lot of infrastructure attacks on PUD.
Yeah.
And I would imagine they can't necessarily do things standalone. And really, we should be looking at that as law enforcement and as fire. How do we interact with them as well?
Yeah.
Because obviously, we just had another school shooting just
Mhm.
today, unfortunately. And my prayers go
Okay.
out to the parents and everybody affected by that tragedy in Nashville.
Yeah.
Um, and the one thing that the board is not talking about is how do we get them on the radio system? This
Yeah.
what's being proposed with the subscription fees. It's not open to bringing in the partners that we want.
Okay.
um, I really want it to where, there could be an easy way, to communicate as first responders are going into these incidents at schools.
Yeah.
You might have, a football game, for example. If there's a mass casualty event there, you're going to have
Yeah.
a lot of school staff there, but they're not going to be able to talk to law enforcement or fire.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that really what the board is falling down on currently is being all inclusive and looking at a system
Mhm.
that is going to do the most for Columbia County.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very few times in my career out here have I ever had to summon Portland or Washington County. There is the off chance, maybe a little bit of fringe up in Vernonia where you have TVFNR or Banks Fire, but there's ways to link those systems together where we don't have to be tied to Washington County. And I really think that that's what the board is failing to do, and the price tag on it. There should be a lot of scrutiny on the way that they're going forward with the purchasing process.
Yeah.
Never been or seen a procurement in which we buy a piece of equipment that now ties us into a system,
Mhm.
especially a piece of equipment that is, I believe, it's 5 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
think about this: to go buy a new car and
Yeah.
you put it in the garage for 5 years and you don't start it up. And
Yes.
then, you get it out, hey, we get a smoking deal on it. This car's been
Yes.
sitting, doesn't have any miles. So we're going to pull it out of the garage now. But you know what? The oil needs to be changed. We got to do all this other stuff. And oh, by the way, there's all these recalls that were on it during the time. So now we got to try and see if the current software can be loaded into this old car, this old technology. So,
Yeah.
it really, to me, it seems like it's been a way to shoehorn us into a system by
Mhm.
making this one purchase, spending, I think it was close to $1 million or at $1 million, without actually looking and knowing what Columbia County needs first.
Yeah.
Without coming up and going, this is the requirement. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the radio coverage that we want.
Yeah.
I think what they don't understand is we have a very diverse geographic area in Columbia County.
Yeah.
You go
You
from
do.
some of the urban along the highway.
Mhm.
You've got some real issues with radio in the Rainier area just because of the way the highway goes up and turns around the corner and the rock face and everything's below, and then you've got the up on Old Rainier and that huge elevation change. You've got some real issues there.
Yeah.
And 800 may or may not cover it. It's going to,
Mhm.
so realistically, no matter what, when you look at a system, it's going to be made up of different frequencies. And so I think for some of the partners that were voting on, moving this system forward, they're not realizing that they're not going to have exactly what people are going to have down in Scappoose or maybe
Mhm.
even in Vernonia, just because Vernonia's got is close to the WCN system. So,
Okay.
that's there's going to be this interconnectivity and different frequencies, and they may even have different radio equipment based on what they're what they're on. And again, we won't see until we see the full proposal. But
Yeah.
I want transparency, out of anything with this board. I
Yes.
want transparency, and I feel like there's been a lot of things that have occurred recently that there
Hmm.
isn't a lot of transparency being put forward by that board, and that's really what I'm looking, when elected, right?
Hmm.
When elected, that I would be looking to change, and I think if there's anything that the board is doing poorly, that's the biggest thing is being transparent to the taxpayers who went out and passed the 911 operating levy here, a few years back, and are going to be asked again, and they're going to be asked to pay for this new radio system.
Yeah.
And for them to not be able to say, we have done our due diligence in finding the best system, most cost effective. I think that that's a real black eye for elected officials, and I think that we need to change that.
For sure. Transparency, what you just said, transparency is so important in every agency, in every board, in every elected representative that have been voted in by the constituents. I could say that all day long.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing that up, and I just really appreciate you taking the time, to share with our community your thoughts, and um, really appreciate that. So thank you so much, Jeromy. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I'm just asking for everybody's, from Columbus City area all the way up to Rainier. I'm just asking for those votes for the Zone 2 position.
Yeah.
Um, and if anybody has any questions, I will be, getting you my email address and number for anybody if they wanted. I'm more than happy to come speak to any groups.
Okay.
If there's any, I want to be transparent as an elected official or as a candidate for an elected position.
Yeah.
And if anybody has questions, I'm more than happy to share my information. If anybody wants signs, they can reach out to me. Um, and again, anything that I can do to make the system and make the process better for the taxpayers, the constituents. That's the biggest thing. I'm more than happy to speak with people.
Wonderful. I will be sharing that out on Engaged Citizens, and I will post your information where people can reach you and get together. And thank you so much, Jeremy, and good luck. And hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. And Sherry, thank you for what you do. I appreciate you getting very involved in this and continuing to fight the good fight and to bring light to certain issues. So thank you very much, Sherry.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thanks, Jeremy. You take care. Okay.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye bye.